Hello, everyone. Welcome to our lunchtime CODA information session this Wednesday, the 13th of March. Thank you for sharing your lunch breaks with us. We most appreciate it. Look, while we actually wait for some people to join us, why don't you have a click on the chat button and tell us where you're joining us from? So today I'm actually positioned in our Sydney campus in Ultimo. Where are you? Are you in Perth? Are you overseas? Are you in Melbourne or Brisbane, where our other campuses are? So pop in the chat where you're actually joining us from, and in a mere moment we'll start, okay? Oh, awesome. A few people from Sydney, a couple from Melbourne. Welcome, guys. Lovely to see you here today. Another Sydneyite. Very good. Lovely, lovely. Okay. Oh, from Perth? Oh. And from Brisbane. Lovely. Brilliant. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you here today. You're joining us for a pretty special session today, and I'll tell you why in a mere moment. Okay. Basically, I'm going to share my screen, and if you could just let me know that you can see it in the live chat, that would be great, okay? So let me just do that. Can you see a big screen that says where CODAs are made? Is that coming up for you? Oh, lovely. Thank you for, thank you guys for that confirmation. All right, cool. Well, this is where you've decided to come today because you're interested in our coding courses at CODA Academy. We offer web development boot camps, which will basically turn you guys into junior full stack web developers in either 6 or 10 months. We start our show today, with an acknowledgement of country. We welcome you all, and in the spirit of reconciliation, CODA Academy acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. And we join you today from Gadigal land. Who are we? Well, indeed, there's me in the middle. I'm pretty much wearing the same outfit. So there's Dallas on the left. He is based in Brisbane. Likely, if you're a Brisbane lead, it's Dallas that you'll chat with. I'm based in Sydney, and I usually talk to people who are Sydney-based. And Tom, although based in Sydney, usually handles our Melbourne-based prospective students, essentially. So although we can talk to you no matter where you're from, but that's sort of how it breaks down. Yeah, so if you feel like you'd like to give us a call, do feel free to. We'll probably contact you or have already contacted you about this webinar anyway. Now, today's special because we are having one of our amazing educators at CODA join us for a mini coding lesson. Alex has been teaching at CODA Academy for 7 years, and he loves gardening and he loves gaming and he loves all things web development. When I see Alex on campus, here he is. Hi, Alex. Thanks for joining us. I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. Hello, hello.
Oh, there he is. Hello. Yeah, there he is. So when Alex is on campus, he's always sitting at a big desk, which has got lots of little figurines attached to the front of it. And yeah, he's very much settled into, looks like a little gaming zone. It's a comfortable spot, I would say. Yeah. So Alex is actually going to be joining us after I give you a brief overview of what the course actually kind of has to offer for you. I won't be long. And then Alex will go through a mini coding lesson. Okay, thanks, Alex. And we look forward to you joining us later. Now, before I do this, actually, Tom, can you come on?
Aloha. Hi,
Look at me
everyone.
forgetting key steps. Okay, So, Tom, could you just take us through the housekeeping for the live chat before our participants actually put any questions in, just to make it streamlined? I'll just duck off camera briefly.
No stress. So again, hi everyone. Nice to meet everyone. If you heard my voice before, hello again. But when it comes down to it, guys, questions are very, very simple. We'll answer all the questions at the end. And the best way for you to actually submit a question is actually to go to your chat bar, look at the little two button and change it to everyone. That way everyone can see your questions and then I'll store them up and I'll start telling to our host at the very end and we'll try our best to go through all the questions. But yeah, other than that though, guys, let's keep it civil. Let's have a lot of fun today and I can guarantee you have a blast. But yeah, I'll bring it back to Lee then. See you guys.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, awesome, guys. So don't be shy. Pop your questions in the chat and do say who they're for, whether they're for me, for Alex, or for anyone. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now, why learn to code? I'm not going to read you everything that's written on the screen here, but I am going to say there are a number of reasons why people will come to us to learn how to code. They might be looking for a different career path, which is one of the most popular reasons for people to join us. They might be looking for something which stimulates them cognitively because the job that they've been doing for quite some time is not very stimulating or interesting to them anymore. They probably love problem solving. This is quite a common theme. People who like to use their logic to create, make, and solve problems. You would be looking at working with teams, and that could be something very attractive to you, especially if you've worked in a job which is quite solitary before. You can also unleash your creativity with coding. A lot of people assume it's not creative, but it's quite the opposite. You have a lot of room for creativity within what you're actually making. And of course, there's just, the need and the want to embrace technology as it changes and shifts. And yeah, you'd love to be part of that. That's the most common reasoning that we see when people are joining us. So the boot camps that we've actually got coming up, we've got one starting in under 2 weeks on the 25th of March. That one is our 6-month accelerated course. And then another starting on the 29th of April. That's our standard course, which goes for 10 months. For each of these courses, there is an optional 4-week industry placement at the end. They are both delivered in a 100% online virtual space. So that's where the core content that you are going to go through, it's all delivered on there. So your classroom, it's very much a classroom. It's very much educator-led, but your classroom doesn't have physical walls. They're digital ones. So you will join us if you take the accelerated bootcamp. It is Monday to Thursday classes, 10 a.m. to 1:45, Monday to Thursday. So 4 days a week, with an additional 23 hours per week towards getting through all of your coursework. If you join us for the standard course, that will see you in live classrooms with us on Tuesday and Thursday evenings from 7 till 9 p.m. and then a Saturday morning from 9 till 1:30. We are based in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne as far as our actual sites, our campuses and our CODA student hubs. When you finish with us, you do not receive just a certificate of completion to say, good job, you finished the course. You get a formal qualification, a higher education diploma of IT, which constitutes around 1 year of a Bachelor's of Computer Science. The price is $22,250 and there are fee help loans available for Australian citizens if you're interested. And a little visual look at those. There's the accelerated bootcamp. Your live classes are there in green. There is online support available to you Monday to Saturday, 9 to 5. And then we do offer face-to-face support as well. That's more of a chat that you would have with the educator to see what days they're available on campus. Standard looks like this: live classes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings and on a Saturday. And again, support on Discord 9 to 5, Monday to Saturday, which is extraordinary, really. We decided to do the majority of your facilitated self-study time towards all of your and such on a Sunday, that would just mean that you'd be waiting until the Monday to get an answer on those questions. The bootcamp breaks down into 3 terms with an optional industry placement that follows. That industry placement could fall a week after, or it could fall several weeks after. In term 1, you're studying HTML and CSS. In term 2, you move on to studying Python with Flask as a framework. Term 3 will see you learning JavaScript and React and the MERN stack. And then if you're interested and eligible, you move into a 4-week industry placement, could be paid, might not be, with one of our industry partners. Okay. Here are some places where our graduates are working. They vary in size. So our industry partners could be very small startups to medium-sized companies to very recognizable, well-established companies that really need no introduction. If you are interested, we do offer a scholarship which would pay for 50% of your course fees if you are successful in receiving that scholarship. The Diversity in Tech Scholarship is a chance for you to explain what makes you a diverse person in the industry and a diverse person moving into tech, right? So, and in the course as well. So essentially, applications for this one have already closed for March, but if you plan to join us for April Standard, the applications close on the 15th of April. We would very much love to see your applications and what you've got to say about yourself and what makes you diverse. We want to foster diversity within our course and then moving into industry. It's so important. So yeah, to apply for this, you need to start your application with us. So that just means filling in a 1-page application form that will then open the opportunity up for you to apply for the Diversity in Tech Scholarship. It's open to all domestic students. Our application process, you apply, and maybe Tom could drop a link to apply into the live chat. If not, look, you can find it really easily on the CODA website anyway. But yeah, you click on the link, it takes you to a 1-page application form, you fill everything in, and then, yeah, basically we take you through the enrollment process. You follow the prompts given to you by our admissions team, and then you're a student. And yeah, look, the whole thing can be completed in a morning if you have everything ready to go. So it's very, very simple and very smooth. If you'd like to join our next info session, because you just kind of love it, you love joining info sessions, some people really do. So please do join us again for our April session. We're thinking to have a student, a current CODA student, come and join us with some of their work to show you, which could be super interesting, because if you're thinking of joining us too, then that's really what you'd be kind of working towards in the future anyway. So yeah, Wednesday the 18th of April at 6 p.m. That's our next one. So we alternate between evening and lunchtime sessions. If you weren't able to join us today and you're actually going to be watching me in a recording, then maybe you can join us on the evening of the 18th of April. Yeah, so feel free to register for that one. We have them every month. Here's CODA Academy. Here's who we are with our little avatars. Mine doesn't look like me anymore, but that's okay. I'm a bit grayer than that. Anyway, so there's Dallas, myself, and Tom. Feel free to contact us for a chat to see if this course is right for you, or to chat about any personal circumstances that you have that you're not quite sure how it's all going to work out for you. And we can sort of help you through with any answers to those. That could include taking holidays at certain points, you know, any kind of support that you might need in the course in particular. It could be about, yeah, like the possibility of needing to defer, etc. But like, yeah, let's chat. That's what we're here for. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Alex, come back. It's time for you it's time for me to stop sharing my screen. It's time for you to, yeah, give us your beautiful example mini coding lesson.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that, Lee.
All right, I'm
Um,
disappearing. Bye.
cool. Thank you. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. We want that one. And I need to get my Zoom windows back. So yeah, basically what this session is here is basically looking at seeing how we teach, seeing what sort of stuff we can make, and yeah, just getting an idea of what your time might be like in the actual classes that we do. So today what I've got is basically what you should be able to see on the screen is a website and some code next to it. So just put a yes in the chat if you can see it, just to make sure that we're all good. Fantastic. Thank you, Britta and Luke. What we'll be doing is, and more yeses, fantastic. We'll be making this web page. It's just a short little one-page website, but it's kind of a good starting point for seeing what you can do on the web. So this represents a cafe. It has a little bit about what they are, what their restaurant might look like. Just basic information because basically every business needs a website. So with this goal in mind, I'll move this away and we'll bring up another window. What we'll basically be doing is working in an editor called Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code is one of the more popular programming editors that you'll find out in the industry. There are a variety of them out there. But for web development, Visual Studio Code is kind of the king. What we can do is we can make a project and start editing code in that. So I'll be going File, Open Folder, and we want to find, let's go to a good organized project area. Through your time in the course, you will make a variety of projects. You can see I have a bunch here in this little directory. Some of them are bootcamp related, some of them are not, because as an educator, you'll find that your educators do work on industry stuff when they're not teaching. So I have a whole bunch of stuff here, but we'll make a new folder because this is a new project. This is Coder, Webinar, Cafe, website. And we'll just select that as our workspace. Basically, with our projects or with our workspaces, we can make stuff, so we can write a whole bunch of code, and then we can also preview it. So thinking back to our goal, the example that we showed, we can see what that website's going to look like while we code. So we don't have to go back and forth between like writing stuff, waiting for it to be like compiled into a program and then seeing it. We can just see it as we code, which is really nice. So to that end, what I'll do in VS Code, we can make a new file. The language of the web with our base level HTML and CSS that we want to show today is HTML, and we want to make a HTML file. There are a couple of not necessarily like unofficial rules, but kind of just habits from decades of industry that you'll see through coding. So index.html, the name kind of just, index, what is that? It kind of just means that this is the starting page of our website. It's an old industry convention where it's just saying that this page, when you're detecting it, this is the home page of the website. You can make multiple HTML files for a single website and they can all be called different things, but it is really, really nice to just have an index.html. So whoever looks at your code, whatever systems you want to deploy it to make it public to the internet, if they see an index.html page, they can know and automatically figure out this is the home page. So with this home page, if we have a look and just see what it is by default, it is an empty file. But what we can do in VS Code is we can go live. So down the very bottom here, I have an extension installed, and as part of our classes, we'd show you a whole bunch of extensions to go through. But we have an extension that lets me preview my work here. So go live down the very bottom right. That should pop up as a web browser page. So this is Google Chrome that I've got here, and it's popped up as a page automatically. It's blank because there's nothing here, but that's fine. For the sake of the lesson today, I am going to copy that URL and close that page because I do think we can kind of keep things simple in this lesson and just have the page right next to our code. like we saw in the goal preview. VS Code as an editor provides a whole bunch of different things that we can do. So we can like access databases, we can open up terminals for different things. We can also show a browser within the editor. So I'll do that here, simple browser, put in the URL, and we can see that here as the exact same that we saw in Chrome, but just side by side with our work. Now, for this lesson, we won't be making any other files, so I am going to shut this little explorer here. Gives us more space to see our code and see our work. But yeah, this is going to be our editor for the day. We can see code, we can see the preview. That's just a nice way to just see that we're on track with doing what we want to do. So, for a web page, there are some common boilerplate things that we have to do. Every web page has a little bit of metadata involved with it. So that is data about the page. Because if you visit a web page in your browser, you'll find, if I pull up an example, you'll find things like in the very top of the tab here, they have an icon, they have a title, they have a whole bunch of stuff that they can put about their web page, just even separate from the page's content. So we have to configure that and then also configure the content that people would see and click on. To do that for us, VS Code actually includes a really nice system that just does a lot of the boilerplate for us, because the thing about boilerplate is that it is common code, right? All pages will have this stuff, which means we don't have to write out a whole bunch of stuff every time we make a page. We can just do a little shortcut. So HTML, and you can see a little autocomplete suggestion here. We got HTML, HTML5, HTML, XML. The modern web that you're probably familiar with across all the websites you interact with is typically going to be based on HTML5. And you can see from the preview, it's got a bunch of code in it already. So we'll go HTML:5. We can click on it or just hit enter, but it provides some code for us automatically. So if I save this, there is still nothing changed. The page itself has no new content to show, but the boilerplate that we put in is the starting of our metadata. So we can see that, yes, this is HTML. We have a certain type of text encoding. We have content to tell us how to display the page on a screen. We have the title, which is what we'd be seeing in a tab. And we can put in a whole bunch of stuff because the header section or the head section is metadata. It's not actually shown to any user. If we want to make stuff visible, we have to put it in the body. So the head is for data about the page, but the body is for content that is on the page that you want people to see. For our Coda Cafe, we can put in some headings. So we can do a angle bracket to start an element and say H1. This little section we've created, this represents a heading. If you're familiar with like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, it's the same type of headings there. So we have multiple types of headings we can access, but we could just say Coda Cafe, if I could spell properly, Coda Cafe. We can save it. And we can see on our webpage, we now have a big heading. And like with our Google Docs and Microsoft Word, if we put in like a H6, so a really small heading, we could put in come and get caffeinated as a little subtitle for the page. And we can see that on the page now as well. So these little building blocks here, so between the angle brackets, these are HTML elements. These are how we assemble the content of our page. We have to build up the structure of things to go through. So we have our H1, we have our H6. We could put in some more content as well. But if we put in more and more content, like if we put in like a paragraph tag, we could say, come to the cafe, it's super awesome. Like that's cool, but it's not really organized at this stage. So what we have to do is figure out elements or structures we can build with HTML that make this page easier to process and tidy up. Because the content we've done so far is just plain text on a page. If we want to make it look pretty, we've got to actually figure out how to access those structures that we've built and apply CSS, which is another language on top of that. So when we work with these things on the web, we're kind of working with a variety of tools. We have our HTML to build up the structure and content. We'll have CSS to build up the styling or the appearance of it. And then, of course, we'll have JavaScript as well, which lets us build up interactivity on the page. For this lesson, we're just sticking to HTML and CSS. We want to make some content, make it look pretty. We don't have to worry about interactivity because even in the bootcamp, we leave that for term 3. So term 1, we figure out the basics of making a web page. And then as we learn more and more programming, we can come back to that in another term and apply that together. So we can mix all these technologies together. So for our purposes today, we'll focus on the HTML and CSS, and we'll build up some structures that make this easier for us to style and decorate, essentially. Because we've got the headings, but they're kind of just there on the page. What we should do is give them structures or layouts that we can then like center the text on the page, make it a certain size on the page, move things like a footer down to the bottom and so on. There's a lot of content that we should position in certain ways based on just how people expect websites to look. So to that end, we'll keep that content in mind, but we'll comment it out. So I'm just selecting it all and doing Control/. This creates a comment on the page, which is kind of this cool thing that we can do that just says, hey, this content's here, but if I save it, it's all gone from the page. So we can make notes for ourselves and say, all right, we want this content at some point, but we don't actually want to see it. We've got to figure out something else first. So we have our commented content, and we'll start adding in some nice modern structures. There's this thing called semantic HTML, where instead of just having H1s and paragraphs, we can actually put in more descriptive elements. So we can have a header, which says, all right, this is going to be the heading of a page. There's other ones like footers and articles and so on, because semantic HTML, the more descriptive those elements can be, the easier it is for things like a screen reader to process it and help other people, like if they, can't see the screen, they can still understand what the page is because we put these structures in place that just make things more informative, regardless of how you can view the page. So for this header, we want to put our heading inside of that. We'll just say a H1 of Coder Cafe. I reckon that's pretty good. It looks exactly the same as it was before, but the key thing is that we've got this structure here. We can actually, we know as developers that there are more things happening now because of this header. It has no impact on the visuals just yet, but we can change that when we get to our CSS. We'll do a main element as well. So this main element just basically tells any screen readers and other types of software that this content here is like the main thing that users should focus on. Because if you're viewing this page and it's like reading through a bunch of navigation options, that's not really the main content. You want to just jump straight to this stuff. We'll do a H6 of come and get caffeinated. We'll put in another paragraph because why not? We can actually copy and paste as well, so we don't have to type out everything all the time. We can be efficient. If we save that, we see our heading, we see our paragraph. That stuff's still the same as it was before, but it's wrapped up in this extra informative element. We can also add a footer because if you're running a business, your website should have a footer just saying like legal information about who you are, what the business is, and so on. We could do copyright info, blah, blah, blah. We can see that on the page as well. Something cool to keep in mind is that while we do have elements wrapped in paragraphs and in headings, you don't have to do that. You can just put the text content directly inside other elements. So we have the copyright info directly in the footer. What it just means is that this content's here that doesn't really have any specific styling to it, or at least by default, but we can decorate that again as well. Because essentially what we can do is if it's in an element, so if it's in one of these angle bracket blocks, we can access it and we can style it. And you can see that this kind of goes all the way up to the top level as far as we have a H1 inside, or we have the Coder Cafe inside the H1. The H1 is inside the header, and the header is inside the body. So all the content that we are seeing is accessible to our CSS that we'll write in some way, because it's all going to be stored inside these elements, these angle brackets blocks that we've got. For our purposes as well, it should be pretty cool to put an image on the page, so it's not just, reading like a textbook. We can actually have some visual content. I reckon in our main section, we'll put an IMG. This is a different type of element where it's just, instead of wrapping around content, we are saying that the image is the content. So if we save it, you'll see there's a little gap now. So on our page between the H6 and the first paragraph. So it knows that something is meant to be there, but we've got to configure that element. We've got to tell it what content to load. I reckon just do a source. This could be a local image on your computer, could be an image from the internet. That's totally up to you. Because I do have one from earlier, we'll just copy and paste the URL in. And for those that haven't worked with URLs that much before, what you want to notice with these image elements is that the URL has a .jpeg in it. So the .jpeg, that is an image file. There are other ones like .png, .bmp as well. There's a whole variety of image formats out there. If anyone's done photography, you would have seen like .raw and stuff like that. There are certain image formats that work best for the web. JPEG's pretty good, but it does lose quality sometimes. But either way, with this source, because it ends in an image file format, we know that we can use it as a piece of content in this image tag. So we've got the source. This is an image stored on ArtStation. Basically, I had taken time to go and Google for like a cafe image, and now we've got that. We'll save that, and we can see we've got this giant image on the screen, taking up a whole bunch of space. So it's not ideal as it is, but the point here is that we have this content in our page. We have this stuff like in structures that we can then access. So with our content in place, we've finished with HTML essentially. Like the content is here. We have to then go and style it. So keeping in mind again that HTML is the structure or the content of the page, CSS is where we can go and style it and decorate it. There are multiple ways to add CSS to a web page. We won't go into too much in them in this particular session because it does take a bit of time to see all the ways. But what we can do is we can add some styling into the head. So again, keeping in mind, the body section of the file is where the content to render appears, but the head section is for information about that content. So what that means for us is we can say, all right, we'll start styling. We're going to say that this styling will apply to all of this content. And just as a bit of a sanity check, what we can do is we can say, we'll get the body tag, we'll give it a background color. Let's see what coffee colors there are. Sandy brown's kind of nice, I reckon. And as a cool thing too, like one of those old HTML web conventions, or not like unofficial rules, there are a bunch of colors out there that are just preset as names. So we could do like pale and see a bunch of options. We can do dark and see a bunch of options. There is a variety out there that is just predefined that every web browser will have. There are other color formats as well, similar to images. There are just a variety of formats. But we'll stick to one of these preset colors. We'll just go sandy brown. We can save that code so we know that this style is going to apply to the body structure. We'll save it. And we can see now our web page has a sandy brown background color. So what CSS is doing here is essentially saying, all right, on this page, any body element has to have this color. So it finds the body, says, all right, we found it. We can give it this color. This value is there. The other elements, they don't have any value set for a background color, so they just stick to what the body has. And they can just have that same background color as well. So like the H1, the H6, the image, they just inherit the same properties that the body has because the body contains those other elements. So what we'll do, we'll start adding some more styling to the page. I think first things first, we should make the image smaller because it becomes a bit silly to work with if we have to try and scroll around the image to see our other changes so much. What we'll do is we'll say that the image has to have let's have a look at maybe a height of 50%. That doesn't quite work because they are relative to the containing element. We could do VH. There we go. So what I've just said here is that the image has to be, it has to try and be 50% of the screen's height. So the viewport height with a value of 50, that's like saying 50% of how tall the screen is. I probably can't really eyeball like the pixel size of that, but I think that looks like a nice good 50% of the screen. So I think that's pretty good. But this lets us work with the rest of the page a little bit better. And Sean's question there, yeah, that's a good question. So what is the order of precedence for the elements if you had body and header, would the header override the body? If we're talking about like in the styling, so if we go for header, we can see that just the header has it. But if you put the header, if you're talking about like the HTML, so the header wraps around the body, you probably wouldn't see the header. We can actually just mess around with it and just try it out. So if we go and add a header and then cut and paste the body to be inside the header, it might look a little bit weird, but we now have the header containing the body. And because of our CSS, we've told the header to have that background color, so that still works. It does get a little bit weird in some web frameworks, which are different tool sets for making websites, where the way HTML is meant to work is that it's meant to just have a head and a body. So wrapping things around in this way might make some systems break, but yeah, obviously we can still see the page. It still works. For the sake of sticking to good web development habits, I will undo that and put our body content back at that top level. But yeah, it's all doable. Programming is kind of one of those cool things where we can just try it out and see what happens. So we could Control Z and undo whatever crazy changes we try. When you're going through the bootcamp, you will see some things that are like, oh, that looks so cool. How do we make that work? And honestly, some of the best ways to see that sort of thing is to just try it out. I'm currently teaching a class at the moment that is doing some really complex CSS, and a lot of the stuff that we're going through is really just try it and see what happens, because the styling is going to be different for all the different structures that you have on the page. So depending on what content you've got, the styling might just be different. And seeing, oh yeah, so in the style section, if you listed a body color and a header color, yes, okay, that's a really good question, because CSS, it's short for cascading style sheets. And what that means is that it goes from top to bottom. So if I put in body and we say background color of, maybe we'll go for like a pale turquoise. So we see that color there. We see the header, that's separate. They are separate things. But the cascading bit, that comes in really interestingly, because if we said that header has sandy brown, and then we go and make another block of styling that says another color, maybe we have like a pale red. Because the way that cascading style sheets work is that it goes from top down to the bottommost value is the one that will be applied. Now, when it comes to the difference between like header and body, they are separate elements. So if we give them different values, they won't interfere with each other at all. But if you have the same elements applied in different places, the bottommost one will take precedence. So to answer your question directly, like body color and header color, because they're separate elements, they'll just stay separate. But it becomes a thing to keep in mind if you try and do it to the same element. So it's a good question, and it's one of the key things about how CSS works. But yeah, different elements, no problem. So I'm hoping that answers the question there. What we can do, I'll get the coffee color back as the background. We'll get the sandy brown color back for the background as well, just so we have a nice full page there. But we can also kind of write a shorthand to apply the same styling to multiple elements across the page. So instead of making these different styling rules for just individual blocks, we could say that our header and our footer could have a background color of like a burly wood. So it's still a light brown, but not the same brown. And we can see it's a slightly different color there. I think for the sake of styling, I might swap those around. So we'll have sandy brown as the background of the header and footer, and the burly wood as the background of the page. So that makes it a little bit easier for me to read, I think. And you'll see that this is where Sean's question is coming back into play, right? We've said the header is sandy brown at the very top of our styling. But down here, when we say that the header and footer must have this color, we're saying it's going to both. So we could even change this to something crazy like dark blue, and it won't impact anything because it is being overwritten by the following CSS. So we have our header. I reckon we should make those fill the screen. What we can do to make that happen is we can actually apply something called Flexbox, which is a little bit complicated, but it's a couple of key properties that we kind of want. That just makes it easier for us to position and lay out things differently. Flexbox as a concept, there's not really much to it, but it's more of one of those systems where you need to have a lot of hands-on experience to see like how you can use it. So if we save that, the whole page layout just changes, because Flexbox is like it is a way to make pages resize and rearrange themselves depending on what device you're viewing it on. So if you view this page on mobile, maybe some elements get moved around. If you're viewing this page on a computer, some elements will be moved around differently again. But it's just a different way for you to configure all of that. And instead of putting things side by side, we can say that they should go in a single column. And we want, I think that should be all right there actually, but we could move the content into the center of the page. So just keep it across the board in the center. I think that's pretty good. We could also center the text on the page. So we put all the text just in the center, making this kind of like a nice, simple landing page for the cafe. But I think that should be all right for the body there. We can then go and say that we want to access the body, the header. So this is a little bit of a weird syntax that says, all right, find the header, but only if it's directly inside the body. So thinking about how these elements are laid out, we have a body, and directly inside of that is the header, and as well as a main and a footer. So we can access those directly by saying this little angle bracket here. We could also do main and a footer. And we want all of these to be as wide as possible. So they're going to a larger width now, but still a bit of a thing. There's this little margin around every element. So we can just remove that too. Again, coming back to the idea that CSS is just a way to style whatever content is on the page. Like, we've done all of these things to position our content without changing what the content is. So CSS, we can say all elements should not have a margin. Now it fills out the page nice and properly there. What we'll do as well, I reckon like seeing the content all bunched up to the top like this, not really ideal. Especially when it's, putting the footer in basically the center of the page. We can position these things around as well. And by that, I mean, we can set them to have a certain height that makes it look like they've been moved around. So I reckon we should have a header that has a height of like 15% of the page. Or maybe 15 is too much. We can change that. 10 should be all right. We should have a main that takes up like 85% of the page, and we should probably put that in height. So we have a main, and then we'll make the footer like it is at the bottom, but we'll make it fill out properly a little bit down there. Keeping in mind that the percentages that we're using here, they should add up to 100 to make it fill out the page completely. So 10 plus 85 is 95. We have 5% less to work with. I think that's pretty good because the content's all laid out. We have these specifically cleared up rows, and that's filling up the page nicely. Now, I have been given a time warning, so what we'll do, I think we'll show how to decorate the image just a little bit, and then we might wrap up there. So with our image, we have the image on the page. We could give it like some fancy content, like we could replace it with something that's a nice circular shape. We could give it some sepia toning or black and white toning or whatever. What we can do is actually just change the radius of the border, which might sound like a margin thing, but it's actually kind of different. We say that the image has to have a radial border, so a rounded border of like 50%. We'll actually give it an egg shape, essentially. So we're rounding off the corners, creating a nice radial border there. We could also even go for a width of 50 VH, which gets kind of funny because it scales the image. But we can then also tell it to refit that image inside of that shape. So I reckon cover might work. Yeah, cover's pretty good. You'll see that the list of stuff that was there, this is the type of thing where when it comes to learning programming, you do need to make sure you take time to just program stuff yourself, because a lot of these options, they can be useful in different situations. So something like contain might be good for a product picture where you want the whole product inside the shape. You could fill it. So if we do a fill option, you can see it scales the image in a little bit of a weird way, but it still sees the whole thing. I do think I like cover just so it doesn't distort the image in any way. But the point is there that you've got options on how to make that content work. And something fun that could be cool is applying a filter to it. So like Instagram filters, we can just put in a bunch of filters into our content through CSS. So we could do grayscale. So the image is now black and white. Because this is a coffee website, I think we should go for a sepia tone. So we can say that the sepia of like 100%. I think that's probably too much because it's lost a lot of the original color, but we can change that value as well. So 50% sepia toning, still keeps some colors, but it looks kind of like a nice coffee sunset maybe. So I'm thinking that should be pretty good there. Cool. All right. For the sake of time, I'm thinking we might leave that website as is. But you can see what we're doing here is we can set up structures on the page so we have our content in place, and then we bring in another language to go and style it and make it look interesting. So this is like learning 2 languages to make a website, and that's at the most basic level. Through the bootcamp, you will be learning other languages to make different types of projects. So you can make servers and databases and standalone applications and so on. There's a lot of stuff that we can do because it's so exciting seeing all the different things that we can build with all of these different technologies. I'm hoping that the website's been cool to see. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. But I think I'll wrap up my little coding lesson there. So we'll hand back to Lee or Tom.
Thank you very much for that. That was awesome. That was really, really cool. All the people in the live chat concur. Look, they're all agreeing. Yes, amazing, Alex. Thank you so much. That's great. It looks like we've got a few questions on our run sheet, which were, delivered to us as hosts and panelists. So I'll invite Tom back and he can take us through those, and that'll be a start for us. Guys, if you have other questions though, please drop them into the live chat now, and they can be directed to me about general course information, or to Alex about being a student in the class, or like what we can expect from our educators in Coder Academy. Tom.
Yeah, awesome. So we actually have a question from B directed towards Alex, and the question is, what are some of the qualities that most successful coder students share?
Oh, that's a good one. So a lot of the most successful students that we've had, they've had this really good, I guess the word for I'm looking for is like a good drive for doing things. So if you're just sitting back and going like, oh yeah, we'll watch the videos later or we'll go through the content later and expecting to be like the first person to get a job in the course, it's not really going to happen. The most successful students that get jobs soonest or get the most opportunities, they are the ones that are actively working on projects. They are actively giving things a go. And depending on where they are or how busy they are, the ones that go and network, especially, like they can build up their skills and then go and start talking to other people in the industry about their skills. So all of that sort of stuff, like every little bit of effort you put into that stuff pays off. So I guess yeah, the ones that are driven to actually do things, they're the ones that are successful the most.
Excellent, excellently answered. Now here's another question from Steven. So I read a bit about industry placements. Could you touch a bit more into what that entails and any eligibility criteria for that placement?
Is that
Uh,
for me or Lee?
and that's for Lee. My bad. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's for me. Okay. I'm just a little bit wary because I've just had a message from my computer that it's running out of battery. So I'll quickly do this and then I'm going to jump to another computer. Okay. Eligibility criteria is that you basically have participated in the live virtual classroom sessions, that you are able to show us that you have received credit level grades for.
I think a computer may have went boom. So I can
Yeah.
cover from there. So in terms of our eligibility criteria, we have an 80% attendance requirement, basically, because we are a accredited course. But also you have to achieve at least a minimum of a pass grade. We recommend a credit and above because when it comes down to it, as Alex mentioned before, you get what you put into it. The more you put into it, the better your portfolio looks, and a lot easier it is for our partnerships team to help source those placements for you. So in the end of the day, like you get what you put into it. If you put in the work, you put in the hours, and you will get those industry placements essentially. Is there anything else I missed there, Alex, by any chance?
I think the only thing I'd add is that, like, when it comes to these industry placements, they are our friends and in some cases family as well. But we want to make sure that we're sending good people to our friends. So
Mm,
you want to make sure that you are known as like someone that is good to work with, that participates and gives things a go. Because if you're, just silent and not even participating in classes, we don't really
mm.
have an idea of who you are at that point.
Yeah,
So you want to make sure that we have some idea of who you are and what you might be to work with, so we can then tell you that, like, tell our friends that you would be the super awesome person to send.
awesome. So excellently answered. Hope that answers your question, Stephen. And next up is Leanne, and she didn't direct this question to anyone, so I'll just leave it on the ball. How many students are you able to have per intake each year, and is there a maximum amount? That one I'm not too sure about. Alex or Lee might know a bit more about that.
Hi, I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Cool.
I have reappeared. Yeah, so look, there is not a maximum amount of people that we take into the intakes. What we do is we leave them open and people are like welcome to enroll. And then however many students we get, we very much consider the student to teacher ratio there. And that then will inform how many teachers and teaching assistants we have on the course. If I look at the sort of number of people in the cohorts that we've had over the last year, for example, it tends to be, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's generally between like 40 and 70 generally. And then
Yep.
sometimes we have a bumper one for some unknown reason where we might have 80 or 90, but they're not as common. Would you say that that's right?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. The class I'm teaching at the moment, we've got just over 50 students in that one. And that's just one cohort. So we've got multiple cohorts that, like, as Lee is saying, vary in size, but there'll be a lot of students coming through, and we want to make sure that, yeah, we just get involved with every student that's in the cohort.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Is there
Yeah.
any other questions?
Of course, this one is from, I don't want to butcher the pronunciation of his name. I think it's Sheik. And this one's directed towards Yuli. Standard
Yeah.
versus accelerated. If we have all the time, which one would you recommend? And do you miss out any content in the accelerated course?
So you don't miss any content on choosing the accelerated course. You're just choosing how quickly the information is delivered to you, essentially. And I guess by taking the accelerated course, you're really kind of fast tracking your way into industry. So you could be finished the course, have done the industry placement, and then be working in your first job within a year, like quite reasonably. Yeah. So if you do have all the time and you've got time in your days to be able to do the accelerated and really put yourself deeply into study mode, then absolutely do the accelerated course. We absolutely recommend that you do it if you've got the time and the situation that facilitates basically getting through all the work. Yeah. If you're working full time, obviously that's not possible. Even for some people working part-time, it may not be possible to do accelerated. But if you're interested in fast tracking into industry and you're keen to just roll your sleeves up and get coding and really get involved and have all the hours available to do it, absolutely do it for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any other?
Moving on. This is from Amy, and this is for all three of us. What makes Coder Academy different to other places?
Oh, can I jump onto this one? Because
Go
I've
for
been
it.
teaching here for over 7 years now across a variety of boot camps, and the reasons that people have joined in the past, they've varied a lot, but one of the key things that we see is that students, they just want to have some sort of hands-on learning about coding, because as I kind of mentioned during the session, you've actually got to be doing this stuff. Like, it's basically a practical skill. So we've had students join us that are like, in their final year of their Masters of IT, and they wanted to actually learn how to code because their Masters of IT just wasn't doing that. We've seen other people that they'll come through accelerated because they need something that they want to switch careers quickly. So we're like the fastest people for that. There's, as well as that, like obviously the really nice diploma, which is a really, really good thing for some types of situations that students might be in. But I think the big one is definitely like the practical coding skill, which is just, it's surprising and kind of shocking that universities don't really do practical coding, because it's like, that's coding, right? It's got to be practical. So that's kind of the big one from my perspective.
Yeah, like it is shocking actually that you can spend such a very long time at university and not have that level of practical coding knowledge. Look, guys, university degrees, we're not here to to rubbish them, because they're definitely worth their own, their own salt. If you're interested in going down the more theoretical route, then that's a great thing to do, is put your Coder Academy credits towards a bachelor's in computer science, because you can actually do that. As we're accredited, it is a diploma. It's not a certificate of completion that you get. So having said that, and Alex also said it, we're the only accredited boot camp in Australia. It's a kind of a big deal. That also means that we have to be set at a higher standard. We deliver more hours, more practical coding hours by the hundreds than our closest competitors. That also means, yes, we are expensive, but what you're paying for is an investment. Yeah.
If I could add on top of that as well, it's kind of like, again, just reiterating some things that we just said before, like we are more practical based, and again, everyone is different, and we understand that, and that's why we want to bash on universities, because some people learn through university a lot better, some people learn a lot more hands-on, and for us, what makes us really different is that we focus more on those practical hands-on elements, and it's more just about learning things. It's also about applying things as well, because coming from a university background, I would learn a lot of theory, but I wouldn't know how to apply it. And that's what makes us different, where we operate on a more project-based actual assessment structure, where you actually apply the concepts you're learning as you're doing them, rather than, like, for example, let's go back in high school, you're learning calculus for 10 weeks, and then you do an exam at the end of it, and you forget everything. You're actually doing things, you're actually building a portfolio, you're actually working the skills, but also not just those technical skills, but also the other soft skills as well. It's a very holistic course in comparison to a lot of our competitors. But then again, like I said, everyone is different. It really depends on you. And it's about finding a school where you can get the most value out of. And in the end of the day, like, if you find that we can give you the most value, then that's all I can say. But yeah, unless I have anything else to add, otherwise I'll move on to the next question.
Oh, let me just add, thank you, Amy, for saying that we're lovely. She did say that.
Okay, so
that's really nice.
we'll probably move on. This will probably be our last two questions for the day, because we do have
we're
to wrap
running
up.
out of time, so let's just do those.
The last two questions will be, so this one's from Jesse. It's directed towards all three of us. Is there
Mhm.
anything that we can do now before classes start that can help us prepare for the boot camp? For example, any free online courses, or would it be better for us to just wait to start the boot camp? And that's from Jesse.
Do you
So
want that one, Alex, or do you want me to?
I'll take it. Yeah. I mean, any amount of practice helps. So any tutorials that you find, it's always worth digging into. But like the bootcamp is designed for career changes. So people that might not have done any amount of programming or any sort of IT at all. So you don't have to worry about doing stuff before the bootcamp. We'll cover everything that you need as part of the course. But you know, anything that you want to do does help, but that's all optional.
Yeah, we've heard from our grads before that whatever you've studied will be helpful. However,
exactly.
your cup will run out very quickly.
If
It'll be helpful for a couple of days, maybe
100%.
even a week, but yeah, you'll be learning things at a rapid rate. And yeah, it'll
If
just help to make you feel a bit more familiar when you start the
mm,
course. I think that's the main thing. And of course, if you've never ever coded before and you're just here as a curiosity, well, now you've watched Alex's coding lesson, then go forth and find yourself some free
100%.
coding lessons at Free Code Camp or Code Academy, like free or very, very cheap, and come back and join us later. Like 100%. That's definitely a great place to start. Yeah.
2000%. Like as they both mentioned, we teach you from the ground up. And if you actually want to know a success story, I actually know an alumni basically. He started out doing an architecture. He did our course. He did our course for a year, and now he's moved on to working at a mid-sized tech company. The opportunities are out there, guys. Again, it really depends what you put into it. But yeah, moving on to our last question for the day. This will be from Sheik, and this one is directed towards all three of us. For anyone, why do you guys only offer web development as opposed to a broader range of coding topics? Does studying web development only limit your job opportunities? This will probably, I think Alex should know the answer to this.
So the short answer is that every business needs a website. But really, just yeah, web development is kind of the fundamental practical application of programming. So whatever we learn to make websites can be applied to other areas of IT. And it's a kind of really nice thing that it's like as a foundational level thing of programming, it can then also be something that you go and work directly in. So it's not like you have to learn a bunch of esoteric, abstract programming stuff. It's like, no, intro to web, you make a website, now you can go and work and make websites straight away. So it's, yeah, for us, it's much more industry focused, even though it might seem like it's just web development. Web development is where the money is. So that's what we want to try and cling to.
And in a broader sense, I would just say watch this space, because just because right now we're only offering web dev doesn't mean in the future that that's going to be the case. So just watch what happens here. All right, I think that might be pretty much us at the end of our webinar today. Apologies for popping off there in the middle. Such a real moment of me losing my connectivity. Anyway, and thank you, Tom, for handling that. Thank you, Alex, for joining us for that amazing coding lesson. Thanks, guys. If you have any further questions that you feel weren't answered today, Tom and I can answer those for you over the phone. Feel free to give us a call. If you haven't managed to save our numbers, just connect with us on the live chat if you wish to as well. We can grab you there. All good. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye.
Bye.